I read 6 books in the 21st week of 2026, so let's go over my thoughts and rating. Last One Out by Jane Harper is a small-town mystery suspense. It follows a grieving mother named Ro 5 years after her son Sam's disappearance. She returns to the decaying town of Carolyn Ridge that has been overtaken by the local mine. Many of the people who were around during the time of her son's disappearance are long gone, but Ro holds out hope that maybe the secrets to her son's disappearance remain in the town. At least that's kind of how the book is presented, but I really feel like the story of Sam's disappearance really took a backseat to this decaying town and the small town drama within it. This is definitely more of a character forward story, which I really appreciate in the grand scheme of things, but I was definitely expecting more of a mystery element throughout this story that I didn't really feel like we got. So if you're looking for a really twisty mystery that keeps you guessing, this definitely isn't it. This is kind of one of those stories that presents a mystery at the beginning and then kind of just tells you what happens by the end. And for me personally, I feel like I could have really just read the first few chapters and then the last few chapters and been good. I don't know, while this is a character forward story, I didn't feel like I really connected with any of the characters beyond Ro and her grief, because I think that that's relatable, that grief is relatable and very human and a very interesting driving factor to a story. But beyond that, I have to say I was pretty bored with the story. This town is dying out and being taken over by this mine. There's a lot of just different political stuff about like selling your land and restarting your life, and there's these people who are very adamant of staying, and then there are people who are just going to take the money and run. And I don't know, a lot of small town political stuff that I just didn't really find that interesting. While the writing in this is very beautiful, I had a hard time with the slow burn of this story. Typically I don't, but I don't know, maybe it was because it's set in this decaying town and there's only a few settings throughout the story, but it just really, I don't know, I was just bored. I just felt like we were stuck in one place, paired with the grief that Ro was going through, and just almost everything about this story just got like a bit repetitive. Not to say there weren't interesting aspects of this story, there definitely were, but not enough to like completely change my mind about how I was feeling about the story, if that makes sense. Yeah. Unfortunately, I was overall bored, even though this is well written. For me, it's just kind of average, and I'd probably rate it 2.5 stars. House of Margins by Tlotlo is a supernatural horror book that follows Renewa, who is looking into the disappearance of her sister Anaya, who went missing from an exclusive writer's retreat. The only thing guiding Renewa's investigation is a podcast. This book is described as Serial meets the other Black girl. I love a book with a podcast element, and I love a haunted house story. This was so multi-layered and absolutely mind-boggling. This story is full of African culture and folklore, and I thought it was absolutely gripping. This story dives into some very heavy themes like generational trauma and post-colonial racism. It also has some very interesting commentary on the publishing industry and cultural appropriation. This book has so much going on. It is very multi-layered, and it completely bent my mind into a pretzel. One thing I wasn't expecting was the amount of body horror. This gets very graphic, and so if you're not somebody who can stomach graphic content, this might not be for you. I can't lie, this book does get a bit convoluted. It is very multi-layered. There's so many things going on, and there are jumping timelines, and you can get lost very easy if you're not paying attention, but I think that that's part of what makes it so interesting, because you are feeling this deep sense of confusion and dread that the characters are also feeling, and I just think that makes it more of an immersive read. I think the symbolism in this story is unmatched. I thought that it was so clever the way it was written, and I just thought this was a very smartly written story. I don't think this is going to be for everyone. I don't think that it's an easy read. I don't think it's easily digestible, but I do think that it has something to say that's worth listening to. I thought it was creative. I thought it was a wild ride. I really appreciated the messages it was portraying. I really appreciated Renewa's dedication to finding out what happened to her sister. This pulled at my heartstrings, it boggled my mind, and yeah, I thought this was really good. I rated it 4.25 stars. The Missing Ones by Torre was my thriller mystery book club's pick for May. This is a suburban set psychological thriller that is available on Kindle Unlimited. It follows the neighbors of this prestigious community, and 5 years ago, 3 members of this community vanished without a trace. There's definitely been a ton of speculation since then, and then a body turns up and the case gets blown wide open, and we learn all of the secrets that led up to this moment. This book is told in multiple POVs from 3 different wives that live in this community, and we uncover what really happened and how these 3 people have vanished and what happened to them. This really reminded me of the vibe of On a Quiet Street by Serafina Nova Glass, which is probably one of my favorite suburban set thrillers of all time. While I'm not somebody who really likes the rich people behaving badly trope, these people are wealthy and they do behave badly, but the focus really isn't that much on their money, so I wasn't really deterred by their wealth. There are definitely parts of this story that are absolutely ridiculous, but in a very fun way, and I thought that this was very clever and well-paced, and I just had a good time while I was reading it. This would definitely make a great beach read, and definitely one that I think I'm going to be putting on my summer recommendations, because it's just twisty, a good time, easy to fly through, and just so full of drama. Tons of betrayal, dark webs of secrets, twists you will not see coming, and yeah, I just had a really good time with this, and I rated it 4 stars. Summer's Never Over by Darby Bozeman publishes on June 9th, and this follows Greer, and her family owns a summer camp, and when her mother passes away, she is forced to return to this summer camp. She was once a counselor here many years ago, but that summer things went terribly wrong, and one of the other counselors actually winded up dead. So now she's back, and she is forced to confront what happened all those years ago and get to the bottom of things. Much like The Missing Ones, this would also be a great summer read. It's set at a summer camp, so definitely has those vibes. It has a little bit of a twinge of horror kind of vibes to it, because throughout this story there is a phantom that is kind of haunting this campground. And so we have this added layer of who is this phantom and why are they stalking the grounds, and how does it lead to somebody passing away, and how does that relate to present day and everything that's going on. It definitely has these summer thriller vibes, but with that added layer, it just has this eerie sense to it that makes it feel slightly reminiscent of a horror book. I would also kind of say it reminded me a little bit of The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager, so I think that if you enjoyed that book, you would also enjoy this one. This is told in past and present timelines, so we get to figure out what happened all those years ago, and then we have present day. And Greer has teamed up with one of her old friends to figure out what happened, not only with the counselor that passed away all those years ago, but with that counselor's mother as well. Now that I'm talking about it, it also kind of reminds me of the vibe of God of the Woods by Liz Moore. There's betrayal, there's long buried secrets, it's twisty, it's easy to read, it's engaging, I had a good time. I will say the ending didn't like totally blow me away, but I was overall satisfied with where it went. And yeah, I just think this would be a good summer read, and I rated it 3.75 stars. The Divorce by Freida McFadden is a psychological thriller that's available on Kindle Unlimited. This follows a married couple, Naomi and Jeremy, and they have a son together named Teddy, and one day Jeremy announces that he will be renovating their house and that they have to go stay in his mother's old apartment while it gets fixed up. Naomi moves into this apartment, and then she finds out that she's actually been kicked out of her home and that Jeremy is leaving her for another woman. Of course, Naomi's not going to take this lying down and decides that she needs to get to the bottom of exactly who Jeremy's new girlfriend is and get her husband back. The thing about a Freida McFadden book is you either love them or hate them. If you're anything like me, you can appreciate a ridiculous and fun read, a little palate cleanser in between some heavier reads with heavier themes. They're fun, they're easy to binge, they're ridiculous, and they're just a good time, and that was my experience with this one. At this point, I kind of feel like an expert when it comes to Freida McFadden twists because I've read all of her books. So I definitely saw where this was going from a mile away, and it was just as ridiculous as I thought it was going to be. And ultimately, while I was totally rolling my eyes and laughing out loud, I was satisfied, I guess. In terms of Freida McFadden books, I don't think this is her best. I don't think it's her worst. I think that it's kind of like right there in the middle. It didn't blow me away by any means, but I had a good time while I was reading it. It does pull a couple of cheap tricks that kind of bothered me a little tiny bit. But yeah, overall, it was a good time, and I rated this book 3.5 stars. Hunger and Thirst by Claire Fuller is a horror book that follows Ursula, and she is now a renowned sculptor, but when she was 16, she got into a bit of a mess. She lived in this squat house, and she got entangled with this girl named Sue, and Ursula was very young and impressionable and wanted to impress Sue, and pretty much did anything Sue told her to do. But Sue got more demanding and things got a little out of hand, and now Ursula is haunted by an event that happened many years ago. Now in present day, there is a true crime documentary maker that is poking around in a disappearance that took place, and Ursula's worst nightmare is finally coming to a head. This is equal parts mystery thriller paired with a kind of thievery dream, paranormal, supernatural-esque type of horror. It has a lot of symbolism with a real-life haunting versus like being haunted by something in a metaphorical sense, and the lines between those two things kind of start to blur. This is a dark coming-of-age story. It's a story of grief. It's a story of desperately wanting to belong. It's very emotionally charged, and it was absolutely brutal. I love a story where a character is forced to confront something that happened many years ago. It's like my favorite trope. I don't know if that's necessarily a trope, but it's like one of my favorite things in any kind of story with a mystery element to it. I really enjoyed Ursula's character. I thought she was absolutely fascinating. She's deeply troubled, so much trauma within her, and she's trying to rebuild her life while simultaneously being overcome with guilt for things that she's done in her past. She felt completely human to me, and at times I hated her, but I had so much empathy for her as well. I thought this was haunting and creative and well written, and I really enjoyed this book. I'm gonna rate it 4.5 stars. Thank you so much for watching. Now please leave me a comment and let me know your favorite book that you read last week. My favorite was Hunger and Thirst by Claire Fuller.